Hello, everyone, and welcome aboard the Starship Arborea. I'm Commander Exorcist, and it is time once again for Talk O Tuesday. This is my weekly Elite Dangerous show where I pick a Galnet article, read it, talk about it, primarily from a lore perspective, but I will break the fourth wall if necessary. We've got an interesting one today because this one leads into an ongoing community goal, and it is a sequel in every sense of the matter for the one that we did last week, where Sirius Corporation was pushed out of the alliance. And so the Sirius Corporation had a defensive pact with the alliance. They were supplying materials to upgrade the AX capabilities of the alliance fleet. Well, they've been asked to leave. And now that they've left, there's this power vacuum. And so we are actually seeing the fruits of that. And, you know, again, I got a couple things I want to say before we look into the article. And this is one of the things I really like seeing. And this is kind of a fourth wall break at the moment, talking specifically about how Elite Dangerous is being managed recently in terms of Galnet is not just flavor text. There's a lot going on in the Galnet aspect of Elite Dangerous that's actually happening in the game. So when we read about something on Galnet and actually see real world consequences in game, that's exciting, and I enjoy that kind of stuff. So really excited about that. The one thing I want to say real quick is just kind of a general note. I had intended to do an El Presidente video today, and I actually got into costume, tried a couple of times, and I can't get through a video doing a character at the moment. And a lot of that has to do with some of the stuff that I'm still dealing with my mom and everything. So I will be doing characters again at some point, but at the moment, I just don't have a lot of the mental resiliency to kind of sit and expel that amount of energy. Because there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of internal things that have to happen. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes things, and it takes a lot to do. So just asking for a little bit of patience. He will be back. He's still out there. I do have some plans for kind of a little storyline coming up with El Presidente, but just kind of an OG whiz. I know some folks had asked. Yes, he's still out there. I even tried to make, because I thought this one would be a good one to do for it, but it's just not going to happen. So we're going to step forward with Man versus Kaine. And yeah, it's been an interesting one so far. So we have two significant trading blocks have emerged in Alliance territory following the termination of the Strategic Defense Pact. We had talked about that. Now, I'm kind of surprised that it's only two, but, you know, it kind of makes sense when you're going for like a community goal aspect thing. You have, you know, two different options. Last week, Sirius Corporation was ordered by the Alliance Assembly to reduce its involvement in Allied military infrastructure and logistics. And we had talked about that. And, you know, there's a lot of reasons for that. The Sirius was getting a little too much into the weeds. They were starting to take on projects and getting involved in things that they really shouldn't have been. They really should have stuck to what they were told to do and just went with it. And no, they're serious. They have to be involved in everything. And so they got their hands in all the extra cookie jars, and this is where we're at. It says the move, labeled fascinatingly short-sighted by Sirius Corp CEO Leon Roy, has triggered an economic rush from allied corporations to grab the lucrative contracts issued as a result. You know, of course, Sirius is going to say that it's short-sighted, and they're going to say all these things about how it's a terrible decision. That's fine. That's PR spin, and that they should be doing that. Honestly, I'd be more concerned if Sirius got thrown out of the Alliance and nobody said anything. They came back, and they're like, oh, that's fine. We'll just leave. I'd be like really worried about that. But at least they said something. Excuse me. I don't know what's going on with me today. So, but you know, we knew that once Sirius left that there would be some kind of a military power vacuum. So you're going to have all these other corporations that would be rolling in. However, in this case, there have been two major players that have emerged. The two trading blocks have somewhat predictably formed around two leading voices in the Alliance Assembly, Edmund Mahon and Kaine. So It's Man versus Kaine, and this marks the latest in a growing series of confrontations between the galaxy's major powers. In LP 85534, a contested mining system, Felicia Winters initially secured control by the end of the first week of conflict. However, her success provoked an immediate and forceful response from Yuri Grom's supporters. That was a really, really good CG. That whole conflict, because it really was back and forth. There were some people, because there are people that are diehard, not going to support the feds no matter what happens. But then you have federal aligned people that are supporting them, and so it was quite a back and forth for that. And conflict zones erupted. There were in space conflict zones. There were on the ground conflict zones. All kinds of crazy stuff going on. The whole system was a disaster. And conflict zones erupted across the system as Grom's forces pushed back, ultimately overturning Winter's hold and plunging the region back into an unoccupied state. So, when these things happen, like what's going on with Kaine and Man right now, there are potentials to affect real-world consequences in those systems. So don't count out the loser at the moment. You look at the stats. I think I saw some stats a while back. It looked like Kaine wasn't getting much traction, but don't count them out yet, because you never know what can happen at the very end. And Man supporters aim to reinforce the Prime Minister's positions as leaders of the alliance via high levels of trade. A spokesman said that Man will prevent the economic disaster which Kaine's assembly motion has threatened. And that's fair. And this is, the first part of establishing any kind of a replacement for what Sirius has been doing in the system would have to be trade. It has to be economic. You need that economic powerhouse to move in and kind of establish trade dominance. And so that's really what's going on here. Is you've got two pieces that are trying to show that they're capable of providing the raw materials necessary to build whatever components we're looking for. And so, meanwhile, Kaine's supporters claim that the Sirius Pact was paper covering the cracks of Man's economic weakness, pointing to as evidence of Man's over-reliance on multi-corporate support to get things done. I don't know if I would say that it's a sign of weakness. I would say that it is futile in the long run. It was strategically beneficial for the Alliance. I mean, we did beat the Thargoids, at least in the war. That doesn't mean that they're gone, and they're probably coming back, because we've kind of been hinted over and over. But I don't know if I would say that it's weakness. It really is, it's kind of a short-term thing. You can't expect the multinational, multi-system corporation to come in and just kind of control things forever, because that's not how this is designed. This is the Alliance. They're supposed to be communicating and working with a bunch of different folks, and just kind of giving it all to Sirius is really short-sighted, because what happens if Sirius gets a better deal somewhere else? They're just liable to pack their stuff and leave, and then you're left with nothing. And so it's important that the Alliance find ways to capitalize on their need for military intervention and their upgrades in their systems and their ships, and engage with people like Kaine, and engage with other corporations out there, maybe even a little bit with Sirius. I don't know. But, there has to be a balance to it. You can't just kind of focus on one single corporation when it comes to this stuff. Kaine herself has always advocated for a political shift toward favoring businesses founded in alliance member systems. So, and that's kind of what we've been talking about. Kaine looking to emphasize those local businesses. So what you have is kind of Kaine as your small business person. She's out there saying, hey, I want to support the main street of the Alliance, the mom and pop shops. And then you've got Man, which is, he's like, I want to bring OCP in so that they can run the police, they can run the military and those kind of things. And so it really is a battle of the titans, because the larger multi-corporations, the big ones, they have a lot of influence. However, history has shown that when you get a bunch of the little mom and pop shops together, if they work together and they pool their resources, they can be just as powerful as some of the big companies. Some of these little mom and pop shops have absolutely decimated multinational corporations throughout history. It's just about timing, perspective, and perseverance. How bad do you really want it? How bad, does Kaine and the people she represents, how bad do they really want this? And that comes down to both trade blocks have asked for shipments of semiconductors, not superconductors, semiconductors, ceramic composites, and synthetic fabrics. So it all depends on the delivery and what people are willing to give, the amount of time and energy that they are willing to put forward. So if you're a trade pilot looking to support the mega corporations with Edmund Kaine or Edmund Mann, I almost called him McMahon again, the trade block, you can go to Bowersoxport in Winyama, I swear. But if you want an even cooler name, you can go to Nikado Kaine and sign up at Fukadoc in Apura. Honestly, I think Fukadoc should win just by name alone. So, hey everybody, these are the disciples. These are the folks that keep this channel going. If you would like to support the work that I do, then go to commanderexorcist.tv/support. I would love to have you join the team. You get early access to videos, some projects that I work on, and obviously your name here in lights. And yeah, and your support would be appreciated. So that's it, my friends. It's there's a lot going on. There really is. And in this case, there's a lot going on in the universe. So get out there and pledge your support to one side or the other. Are you side small business? Are you side OCP? Where do you stand? I tell you what, leave a comment below and tell me where you stand and tell me why. That'd be kind of interesting. And don't forget to do all the typical YouTube stuff. If you like what I do on this channel, trying to grow a little bit more, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure notifications are turned on so you don't miss any of the Elite Dangerous content that I create. I do weekly videos. I've got Monday Let's Plays that I do. Taco Tuesday, that's assuming that they give me a Galnet article. We've done really well in the last couple of weeks, so hoping that continues on. So, hey everybody, thanks for hanging out with me today. I'm Commander Exorcist. Take care, fly safe, and I will see you out there.